Hi, I'm Madison and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the books that have changed my life and that I'm so thankful for. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 10 books that have just had an impact on my life that I'm just very thankful for, especially during this holiday weekend. I don't really celebrate this holiday, not gonna lie, I'm Australian. There's gonna be a whole range of books in this video. Some of these might bring up memories for you, some of them might not, I don't know. But I'm gonna start number one on this list. I'm gonna start with a book series that I'm thankful for because it got me into reading. And also it's probably the reason why I'm such a collector of books. And that is the Rainbow Magic series by Daisy Meadows. Now, I don't know if you guys read this as kids, but I read this as a child. I collected the crap out of these books. I don't even know what number I had up to. I used to sleep with like them under my pillow so I could read them after lights out. And it was just so amazing. It almost inspired, it actually did inspire me as a child to want to be an author. I wrote books that were very similar to this. It's one of the reasons as well how I started to draw was because I saw these illustrated books and fairies and things like that. I guess I've always been into fairies since I was a child. The Rainbow Magic series was something that I adored as a kid and it really bolstered my love for reading. This follows these two girls who one day find a fairy and they end up helping her, and they learn that there are all these other fairies and they start going on these adventures to help all the different fairies. The first couple of books are based on the colors. I remember my favorite one was Fern. I've always loved girls in green. You know, I loved Fern. I loved Sam from Totally Spies. She was green as well. I loved Cornelia from Witch. She was like the Earth Witch. So, no, just something I'm realizing in myself as I made this video, but that's definitely my number one. Then I want to talk about a book that really changed my life as I was growing up, just an author in general, and that's Sarah Dessen. She had a lot of books that I did enjoy as a kid, and just her books I always read during very impactful times during my life. She's the reason why I feel like I am, to an extent, like a hopeless romantic, always looking for that perfection. I definitely read her books at quite a young age, when some of them do have a bit more difficult topics to go through, but the two that have always really stuck with me are This Lullaby and Just Listen. You know, surprisingly enough, Sarah Dessen is one of those authors whose books I actually have reread multiple times, and I'm not someone who does reread books. But Just Listen had a very profound impact on me because of some of the topics in that book and how those relate to my own life. But then This Lullaby is just, it's one of my all-time favorite romances. Her books always had a difference to me. The Truth About Forever, that involves at one point a family who has a catering business, and that's one of the reasons why when I got my first job I looked at getting a job in hospitality and working at a restaurant, was because that was just so amazing to me. So her books also changed my life. She's someone who I will always be thankful for her books. Then of course I do have to mention Percy Jackson, The Heroes of Olympus, my boo Rick Riordan. My brother actually started reading his books before I did. I mean, they were considered like the boys book series, and I remember, because I'm one of those people who saw the movie and then decided to pick up my brother's books, because I fell in love with Logan Lerman. Can anyone blame me? Can anyone blame me for falling in love with Logan Lerman? No, you cannot. Funnily enough, I actually started with the Heroes of Olympus series because I was so intrigued by Piper. And to this day, Piper is still one of my favorite book characters of all time. She is sorely underappreciated. It's a fandom that I became so deeply immersed in. It's one of the biggest fandoms I felt like I got into before I started reading, for example, Sarah J Maas. I would say that the Read and Verse was the biggest one I was part of. Now, as I did mention, I do want to mention Sarah J Maas here just because I read her books during a time in my life where I was going through a lot. And it's not something that I ever really talk about on this channel because it all happened pre me starting this channel like many years beforehand. But I did deal a lot with, I had an eating disorder when I was in high school, and that's also when I was in recovery was when I started reading her books for the very first time. It was the first time I was let out of program, the first time I was able to really travel with my family again was when I first picked up the Throne of Glass series. And there was just something so profound in that just changed me. I've always loved reading, and I was always reading during that time, but that series made such a huge impact on me, especially Heir of Fire. Heir of Fire is a book that I will never forget. That bathtub scene is something that I just very dearly related to in myself. The whole idea of what goes on in that scene is something that I will always carry with me, and so there's just something very special about that in how I kind of went through my own life. So I'm very grateful to that. It's something that changed my life. So I started reading new adult when I was probably in like, I want to say 2014-ish was when I started reading new adult. And I read The Deal by Elle Kennedy in 2015, and that was a book that really bolstered my love for the new adult genre, and kind of realizing that there was this extra step out there of romance books, this extra step of spiciness, this extra step of older characters going through realistic things, of just romance books, sport romance books, hockey romance books. I love hockey romances now. If my dream in life would be to marry a hockey star, do I think that'll ever happen? No. Can I dream it? Yes. But she made such a huge difference to me. I read her books as they each came out. She was someone who I have always loved. I have just always stood by. She's just one of my favorite authors, and so she made a huge impact on me because of the new adult genre. Her and like R.S. Grey, but I didn't start reading R.S. Grey until I think like 2017-ish, like when I was already in college was when I started reading R.S. Grey, where I was reading Elle Kennedy when I was still in high school. So made such a huge difference to me, and I absolutely love her to death because of that. In that same vein, I want to talk about the first romance author that I read that got me into like the darker stuff, the more kinky stuff, the more taboo stuff, the more kind of like high heat level. And for that, I have to thank Sierra Simone, Lesson in Thorns. I read this back, oh God, when did I read this? I read this when it came out because it's when everyone was raving about it. So I read this back in 2019. I read a lot of really important books in 2019. You'll find out why in a second. But I read this in 2019. I read it and I sat there and I go, I love this. I need more of it. And ever since then, I have been avidly reading polyamorous romances, male-male, female romances, especially male-male, female romances, reverse harems, like everything dark and kinky and taboo. It's all thanks to Sierra Simone. She's the one who really got me into it. I know there are a lot of mixed feelings when it comes to this series. People either love it or they hate it. I'm someone who does love this series. I currently now own the entire quartet in paperback, which I'm so excited about because they're just really beautiful books as well. I can't help but not love these. So thankful for these books as well because they've really kind of bolstered me into that. Now, while I'm still in the dark romance area, I need to mention Sophie ḻᴏᴏᴅ is my very first mafia romance, which I read this year, only a couple months ago. Ever since reading this, it has changed my life. I love mafia romances. This is what really helped me realize that I do enjoy dark romances, because Sierra Simone, she writes more so just steamy, smutty stuff, not necessarily dark romances, whereas like Sophie does write dark ones, and you know, mafia romances are a subgenre of dark romances, and it wasn't until I started reading them that I kind of realized that I do like dark romances, because I had tried Penelope Douglas a couple of years ago, didn't really love her books, just didn't really jive with them, and I was like, oh, maybe I don't like dark romances. Started reading Sophie ḻᴏᴏ and I realized, oh no, I do, and now it's opened up a whole new world to me. I have read so many amazing books over the last couple of months, and that would never have happened without her. So thankful there. If you are looking for a beginner mafia romance, this was the very first one I read, and to me, it is still one of my favorites. It is my favorite. It is still my favorite mafia romance, and I think it's going to take something absolutely phenomenal to knock this off its pedestal. Still in the romance vein, I want to mention The Duchess Deal by Tessa Dare, which I just love so much. This was the very first historical romance that I ever read. I read this back in 2019, and look at me now. Look at me now. I read this one book in 2019, and now I own a plethora. If you have not seen my historical romance book hauls from earlier this year, I do have them. I've bought way too many historical romances, and it's all because I read this book and I loved it. I loved it so much, and I have never gone back. I feel like not enough people talk about historical romances because not enough people realize that they're just like any other romance, but they're actually better. I feel like historical romances, not enough people do pick them up because people are like, oh, I don't think I'd like that. But I think that everyone should give at least one historical romance a try in their life, and I think Tessa Dare is such an amazing author to begin with. Absolutely adored it, and I have no regrets. my bank account might have some regrets though. Then I want to mention Beartown by Frederick Backman. This book is the very first book that I ever highlighted and like actually annotated using a pen or anything. I have never done that to really any others of my books since then. Only a couple of my books have I done the effort of actually highlighting them, because none of them have had such a profound impact on me as this one has. This book made me bawl my eyes out. I sobbed like a child. It was just so beautifully written. It's like one of my favorite books of all time. It's not something that I think I could necessarily reread just because of how much of an impact it had on me, but it is just something that is so phenomenal. I think that if you are someone who sees this book and goes, oh, I don't think this would be for me, please just like still go check it out. It is set in this fictional town called Beartown in Sweden. They're very small, kind of isolated from a lot of other places, and their entire town is based on their hockey team, on their high school hockey team. They put all their hopes and dreams on it, and you're following different people who are living in this town, as well as some of the boys on the hockey team, some of the girls at the school, kind of how all their lives interconnect, and how there is just so much pressure put on these boys, but also so much leeway given to them as well, and the impact it has on that town when something horrible ends up happening, and how they try and excuse it. So amazing, so amazing. I mean, I want to reread this, but I just don't think my heart can handle it. Then I want to mention Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is the very first audiobook I ever listened to, and it is the reason why I decided, hey, actually, I do like audiobooks. After I read this, I literally went on an audiobook kick throughout the entirety of 2019. I was reading so many of them a month as I was doing other things. That's how I have such a repertoire of YA thrillers in my backlist. Like, so many people don't know that I have read so many YA thrillers, like even adult thrillers. I've read so many thrillers in general, but people are like, I never see you talk about them on your channel. I'm like, yeah, because I read them all in 2019. Like, it was nuts the amount of thrillers that I read during that time. This audiobook was absolutely phenomenal. I think if you're someone who doesn't know if audiobooks are going to be for you, please look at this book because it has a full cast. It is just so beautifully executed. Just the way that it has been produced is such a cinematic masterpiece. You cannot go wrong with Sadie. I would say Sadie and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo are two audiobooks that are just so phenomenally done that you need to look into them because they're just groundbreaking in my opinion. So love this. It also has the podcast aspect of it. It is kind of like a YA mystery. I wouldn't call it like necessarily a thriller. It's more like a mystery aspect of it, but just so amazing. And the last book I have to say is Daughter of the Pirate King. Now, the reason why this had such an impact on me is specifically because it's one of the first books I ever read when I joined BookTube. I joined BookTube when BookTubeathon was still a thing, back in 2018. It was one of the books I picked as one of the prompts on there. One of the only books I've read from those prompts. And it has stuck with me because I look at this book and I always think of that time period. I always think of, hey, this is the book that I read as soon as I joined BookTube. And to me, that just makes it so special. This is also like one of my favorite duologies as well. I highly recommend it. ᴛɪධᴛᴏධ has just really easy writing style, and this duology is something that I feel like is very anti-slumpy. If you're someone who is in a slump and you like YA fantasy, you should pick this one up. This one will get you out of a slump in a heartbeat. Yeah, that's it. Those are the 10 books that I'm thankful for, 10 books that have made a huge impact on my life. There's definitely more books than that have had impacts on me, but that's what I was really thinking of as I was making this video. Those are the ones that I feel like I wanted to mention. And yeah, let me know down below one book that you're super thankful for, one book that has had such a profound impact on your own life. If you guys did enjoy this video, please hit the like button down below. If you want to see more of me, please go to my channel. And until next time, thanks a bunch, everyone. Bye-bye.